markets took a little breather today, but what do they have in store for us next?
Live from Pecan Sandy Wednesday via Farm Journal Studios, this is AgriTalk. This afternoon, it's a conversation with Susan Stroud from No Bull Ag. Directly following the news, Todd Bubba Horwitz from BubbaTrading.com. I'm handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now, filling in for Chip, the pride of Chicago, the Water Street Oneater from Zaner Ag Hedge, Ted Seifried.
Whew. Yeah, buddy. How's it going, Davis?
Dude, I can't do that to my voice very often. We need to be expeditious. We need to be careful about how often we have you on there because I don't want to blow out my voice on the Ted Seifried. You see, I can barely even say it now a second time.
Do it yourself. Ted. I love it, though. I really do. It's great.
It's unbridled enthusiasm is what it is.
We need a Save Davis water tower somewhere, right?
Well, that's a good idea. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Come on, meme generator. Let's go.
Yeah, right? No kidding. How you doing?
How's things with you, man? You get blown away by any of these storms? Yeah, no? Good.
Not so far. Good. Here in KC, it's been hot as a bugger. But as far as severe stuff, we've kind of been able to shoot the gap a couple of times.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's been okay, but we haven't cooled down quite as quickly as I think the upper Midwest has.
No. Well, actually, we're in the 70s today. It is really nice. I would like to be out driving around in my car, but that might be coming soon, so no worries.
Mm-hmm. Now, which car would you choose to drive around in, Ted?
Oh, yeah. So this is not actually public knowledge at the moment, but there's been a bit of a change in the lineup.
There has. Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to the fleet?
No, the Camaro, unfortunately, is no longer with us. I mean, it's with somebody. It's in perfectly great condition. Well, it was when I left it, right? And I do miss it, but it got replaced in favor of a 2024 Z06 Corvette.
Did you tell the kids the other car had to move to a farm? Did you tell them that?
It's just running around and living happy days. It's a racetrack somewhere, Davis. Yeah. So we're gonna have to update the sound. Although I love the sound of the Camaro, but the Corvette's great too. So we'll have to get another sound clip. But that's a next time thing. I feel like so.
Okay. Yeah, we can work that out.
Yeah. So, well, Davis, what do you think? Do you have any news for us today? I know it was a pretty slow day, but what do you got?
Well, I've got some news for you and a few questions. Wheat futures worked higher early and held on to some of what was gained through the end of the session. Support stemmed from a weaker U.S. dollar and some corrective buying. Spillover from wheat supported both corn and soybeans early, but that support faded as wheat retraced lower from session highs. Some relief from the warm and dry bias in western Russia is expected this weekend and especially next week as the dominating high-pressure ridge present in the region breaks down. December soft red wheat traded within the range of resistance at 572 3/4. Initial support lies at Tuesday's low of 550 1/4. December HRW wheat futures 10 1/2 cents higher at 577 1/2. December SRW wheat gained 8 cents to 563 1/2. September spring wheat closed at 591 3/4, up 16 on the day. Ted, I noticed a trend today where corn, soybeans, wheat, and even some of the livestocks were just range bound, just in these tight ranges between initial resistance and support here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Not exactly what you want to see on a risk on day. I mean, look at crude oil up over $2, right? Yep. So it would have been nice to see some more strength. But yes, just kind of taking a little bit of a breather, as we said in the opener, correcting some of the oversold conditions of the markets. Wheat made a new contract low yesterday, but was able to manage to kind of, bounce off the lows towards the end of the day yesterday. And we tried to follow through today, but I just, we're so oversold. It just, we need to have these bounces every once in a while. I don't really feel like this looks like a beginning to a bottoming formation on a wheat chart. Maybe it is, but there's more proof that needs to happen there.
Yeah. Well, corn futures gave a nod to extending yesterday's gains and did end on the plus side of unchanged. Ethanol production averaged 1.106 million barrels per day, week ended July 12. That's up 4.9% from the previous week and 3.4% above last year. Ethanol stocks down 443,000 barrels to 23.16 million barrels. September corn futures 2.25 cents higher, 3.98. December corn gained 3, 4.11 3/4. March corn futures closed at 4.25. That's up 3 cents today. Ted, how significant is a December corn gain? Closes at 4.11 3/4, just above the 10-day moving average of 4.11 1/2.
Yeah, I mean, it's trying, right?
Okay.
The thing is, I mean, go back to last week. We had I'm going to say a rather bullish WASDE report. The new crop carryover came in less than 10%. Or I'm sorry, 10% off of expectations. 205 million bushels. Man, that should have been, if I'd have seen that report before it came out, I'd said this is going to be up 20 cents. We weren't. We were up 4. And then we were sharply lower Monday. We've been trying to claw back some of those losses, but the price action is just not good. We're in a decision-making sort of zone here as we try to hold on to the $4 level. We're trying the upside, but it's got to follow through. If it doesn't do that, the sellers are going to come back in and probably test that $4 mark. So Come on, let's get going here, guys.
Well, Ted, spread action had soybean futures in divergence today, with nearbys slightly higher but new crop contracts under mild pressure. Gains in soy meal were largely offset by declines in soybean oil, leaving soybean futures to sort it out by itself. August beans 6 3/4 higher, 10.97 1/4. September up 1/2 cent to 10.38 1/4. November beans closed at 10.41. That's down 2 1/4 cents. And we better get over to Bubba while we still have time, Ted.
Yeah, absolutely. And that soybean spread, that old crop, new crop spread is an ongoing saga that maybe we'll talk about a little bit more, Susan. But hey, Todd, Bubba Horowitz, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Ted? How are you, brother?
Doing all right, man. It's a beautiful day in Chicago. I hope you're.
Well, actually, I'm in Las Vegas. I live in Vegas now, baby. It's 110 degrees here, and it's beautiful. And I'm getting ready to go to the golf course after I'm through with you.
All right. Well, good deal. What'd you see in the markets today, buddy?
I don't see anything. I think that the real problem is I think you kind of nailed the entire problem. I don't think we've had more than 2 consecutive updates of that many in either corn, wheat, or beans in the last 4 or 5 months. And we can't seem to get any traction. Anything that looks good changes, and the sellers come in and bury them. And of course, it doesn't help the grain markets that the equities continue to explode to the upside like everything is free. So it's a very depressing situation, especially because the inputs continue to go higher, as we see by a big rush up in crude oil today and other things like that. So it's not a pretty picture at the moment.
No, it isn't. And so election year, right? I mean, you talk about higher stock market, and I mean this feels like this is sort of predicted or self-fulfilling prophecy, I guess. But
as I've said to Chip for the last 3 weeks, what doesn't make sense is the wholesalers are getting destroyed, the farmers and producers, and yet at retail, a box of cereal is twice the price of a bushel of grains.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, except for you can find those boxes of cereal for like $5 off every once in a while. So the sales that they're using, that's their way of deflation. I don't know. It's wild how things have gotten. Yeah.
We need the inflation trade in the grain market is what we really need to see. We need to force the shorts out there. They've got too much control right now, and eventually it'll change, but right now they're too strong.
Yeah, absolutely, Bubba. And I've got a couple notes on the inflationary trade that we'll talk about when we get back. In the meantime, Bubba, have fun golfing, man. Thanks for coming brother. On the show. Take care, buddy.
And the handsome newsman, Davis Michelson.
And Mr. Davis Michelson. All right, everybody, we're going to go to a break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking to Susan Stroud of Noble Ag. So come on back to AgriTalk.
Our name says it all. AgriTalk. What more do you need to know?
Welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. My name is Ted Seifert. I'm from Zaner Ag Hedge, and I am filling in for Chip Flory here on this wonderful Wednesday. Although could have been a little bit more wonderful in the markets. At least we had some green on the board, so we'll be thankful for that. Davis, man, I don't know, man. It's been a tough time talking about the markets here lately. It's just a lot of gloom and
but here's the thing, man.
Stuff,
Let's not sugarcoat it. We have a duty to to provide all of the information.
Yes.
And really what we're trying to do is try and figure out strategies to deal with this.
Yeah.
You know, let's have something actionable so people can get depressed awfully easily if there's nothing to do. But if there's something to be done, well, now I'm doing something, and that's something.
Wasn't it? It's a quote from The Dark Knight, right? People go from Heath Ledger's Joker, right? You know, people go crazy if something happens and there's no plan, but they can deal with anything as long as there is a plan in place. So, yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. And, you know, and that, I mean, that's really like my calling in life. Like, that's what I try to help everybody do, right?
This is what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, just, you know, reporting the news is one thing, but then like trying to predict the future and deal with things that could potentially get a lot worse yet, you know, that's been the struggle basically since the beginning of the calendar year. But obviously, you know, now what, right? If there hasn't been a plan in place, this becomes a little bit more difficult. But, now, you know, there's something that Bubba mentioned at the end, right at the end there that we just didn't have the time to talk about, the inflationary trade. And I would really like to see what he's talking about, meaning, you know, we talk about there's still a lot of inflation. We are not lowering rates, but we've not been raising them. So the inflation still there should be affecting commodities. But here's the problem with that. And this is some like upper level econ stuff. Inflation happens in stages. There's 3 sort of stages that happen before an inflationary bubble bursts, right? The first stage is raw commodities. And we saw that back in 20 and 21 when we were pumping money into the money supply in the form of stimulus, and everything had to cost more, or raw commodities had to cost more, because when there's more money around, the prices of things have to go up because otherwise they're too easily gotten. So you saw that in the grains, really. I mean, we had some bullish fundamentals at the time too, but you saw grain prices and other things go sharply higher. The second stage of inflation is when those raw commodities turn into products and the price of the products start to go up, i.e. cars, i.e. that box of cereal that Bubba's talking about. Okay. And then the third stage of inflation is when labor costs go up dramatically. Now, that's been happening for a while, but that's the main part of inflation now at this point, because people have to go and pay for the higher priced goods that they have to go and buy at the grocery store or wherever. And now you talk about, you know, hourly wage at McDonald's being like $24 an hour and things like that. So we're at that third stage of inflation from my best guess, which means the commodity inflation already happened. So I don't know if I'm as optimistic as Bubba is about inflation really being a positive influence on grain prices once again. I think that is something that we had a couple of years ago, and now that we've moved past that stage of inflation, I'm not as excited about that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. We have a really packed show here today, Davis.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, thanks, man. Okay, so let's get to Susan Stroud. She's from No Bull Ag. She puts out some really good stuff. So check her out on Twitter, and sign up for like her trial. She does multiple things per week. She does some very, very cool charts and graphs and very interesting commentary. So we've got her on the show again today. I've had her on as a guest, but it's been a while. So Susan, welcome back. And how's everything going with you today?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey, pleasure's mine. Although I wish it were in better times, you know, again, markets have been under a lot of pressure, which hey, look, there's some people, cattle feeders, that really love to see the price of corn come down as much as it has. But for the most of us, you know, row crop producers, or, you know, even wheat, from the producer standpoint, this has been kind of a tough slide. And I don't think anybody was really prepared for how much of a slide it's been or where we could potentially be going. What do you think? I mean, are we getting too low? Is there more to go? Where do you see us?
Biggest battle right now is the fact that it's just we're facing non-threatening weather. You know, when you look at, and we used to scoff at USDA trend line yields, but we're trading that, and rightfully so. When you look at conditions, you can't, you know, there's no arguing. And then like weather this week, I know we've had a lot of more localized issues, but take tomorrow, for instance, we're seeing a lot of the middle part of the country. In fact, honestly, the majority of the Corn Belt, we have highs that are in the upper 70s. That's wild. for the middle of July. And so you look at the fact that we have half of the crop pollinating, or I don't know, actually, I think I've lost track of where we're at there. But yeah, it's non-threatening. Same goes for beans. When you look at conditions, anytime that we've had a year where we've had conditions ratings this high at this point, we've had a trend line yield or higher by the time the dust settles. Obviously, right. August makes or breaks beans, but it's hard to argue it. And we're getting enough of these ridge rider type storms or just active patterns that market's taking the path of least resistance, or I should say it continues to take the path of least resistance.
So what about these storms causing damage, though? Because you say non-threatening weather. Well, I've had to huddle in my basement like 3 out of the last 5 nights.
Yeah, I know there are plenty of people out there.
The D word, where's all the pictures of the downed corn on Twitter or X?
Yeah,
whatever.
I especially anything weather related, I try not to scroll on Twitter because I feel like it gets you, you only see the extremes. But yeah, you're right. And there are issues. But again, I say they're more localized. It's not like we have some sort of massive statewide event that's causing problems. So we're going to be arguing these things all the way until the point the combine gets in the field. Then we will argue them in January when USDA prints the quote final numbers, and then we will get to battle with it just like we're doing right now with the 23 crop. We get to battle and figure out what's going on all the way until October, because we actually have 18 reports before crop size is finalized. So from beginning to end. Either way, last week's report was a little bit of it was definitely a shock on the corn stocks, on the old crop corn stocks side of things. That was a net positive in a huge way for new crop corn. Maybe we're just at the point where USDA doesn't want to print that large of an ending stocks number, especially on corn for new crop. And so they tinkered with demand, and here we are. But regardless, yeah, it's a tough time. Anytime that you fall, we're down nearly $2 in new crop beans in a matter of, what is it? I guess it's been 2 months. It was like we dropped out of that 1220 kind of area. We found what felt like a new home around 1150. Then we kind of went down to 11, and then here we are sub 1050.
Right. Yeah. It's just kind of sticking with corn. Like last Friday, we got a report that was really rather bullish. It came in 205 million bushels below expectations for the new crop corn carryover, and that was mainly because of a cut in old crop corn carryover. Yeah. And then we have derecho again, which since that happened on August 10th, 2020, that's been a big scary word for the market. Yet we haven't even been able to take back Monday's losses, right? So
it is a scary word, but the last time that we saw 20 that was a weird year. We saw a tremendous cut to acres. Talking about the 20 crop going from that initial number March to June, then USDA backed up and adjusted stocks. We had the derecho situation, and then here came China buying, I don't even know what it was, 15-20 million metric tons of corn out of nowhere. We're just this is a different setup. We've been talking about this for a while, like we're waiting, and when we have these cycles where we have really high prices because of a very tight stock situation, and a lot of things they're an anomaly that gets us to this point. The downhill slide is so hard because it's nothing but regret, and then it's that look back.
Yeah, you get used to the high prices, and then sometimes,
and then you wake up and you realize D's corn is in the low 4s. And you're like, oh, whoops. missed
Yeah.
that.
All right.
boat
Well,
now.
hey, Susan, we're going to take a break here. Really quick, guys. There's a big difference between corn on July 15th and August 10th as far as the vulnerability that it has to that sort of weather. I mean, that's my best take on this week. We've got some more stuff to talk about with Susan Stroud, so come on back to AgriTalk.
Let's go to the markets page at profarmer.com and recheck today's closes, where December HRW wheat futures were 10 1/2 cents higher at 577 1/2. December SRW wheat gained 8 cents to 563 1/2. September corn futures were 2 1/4 cents higher at 398. December corn gained 3 cents to 411 3/4. August soybean futures 6 3/4 cents higher at 1097 1/4. November beans closed at 1041. That's down 2 1/4 cents on the day. December cotton was 70 points higher on the day at 72.07. On your livestock's August fat cattle $1.60 higher, 184.27 1/2. August feeders 7.5 cents lower, 258.55. And August lean hog futures today 37.5 higher at 91.65. Hey, get more market news every market day. Just visit tryprofarmer.com. Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. If the world is your oyster, we've got pearls of wisdom on AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. I am Ted Seifert of Zaner Ag Hedge, filling in for Chip here today. We've been talking to Susan Stroud of Noble Ag, and we have covered a lot of ground so far. We've got more to go. And then also, we're going to have a special guest that you guys all know coming in the fourth segment with some interesting topics. But I'll leave it at that.
Good
Just a
tease.
teaser for everybody.
Good tease.
Yeah,
You're a
there you
natural
go.
at this, baby.
Hey man, I do my best, and you know what? I've done it a few times.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
So I mean, I honestly got to thank you and Chip and everybody that's involved with the show for allowing me to do it, because I think you're right, man. I think I have. I don't know about better, but I definitely feel like I'm more comfortable with it. And
You got the
used to
knack
be
for
a
it.
long time ago.
You
Yeah, a
got
long
the
time ago,
knack,
I'd get
brother.
really nervous about it. Now it's just kind of.
Well, I did too,
having
back in the
fun,
day.
and
Yeah.
yeah, back in the day.
Mhm.
Man, yeah, dude. I
Susan still here?
remember
Did she leave?
driving. What's that?
Oh, I'm here. I'm just
Is
taking
Susan
it
still
all
here?
in.
There's Susan. Yeah.
I was so depressed talking about low prices that I'm like,
well,
no.
it's game over.
It's gonna get worse before it gets
Step
better. Though.
away
I'm
from the
sorry.
ledge.
And I don't mean the market's necessary. The conversation is gonna get worse before it gets better. Is what I'm gonna say. Yeah. Well, I guess we got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and get into it. Susan, I'm gonna go back to the report that we saw last Friday. It was a big surprise. Quarterly grain stocks numbers 2 weeks prior had come in well below expectations, 135 million bushels below, or 120 million bushels below the average trade guesses. And yet the USDA really lowered new crop or old crop carryover, therefore new crop beginning stocks, and also new crop carryover. What do you make of all that? Do you think the USDA was justified in doing that? Or do you think there's going to be some bigger revisions coming further on down the line?
Oh, of course you would ask this hard question.
Sorry.
One thing I think we have to keep in mind is remember that adjustment in feed and residual. So we always forget about residual. I think the important thing is that we should be high-fiving that there was a downward, or I should say, upward revision in feed and residual that resulted in a surprise downward revision. We haven't been sub a 2 billion bushel carry out, I think, in this 23-24 marketing year at all. So big deal for this crop, even bigger deal for next year's crop. But the thing to remember at this point is I'd call demand estimates for new crop. I mean, it's somewhat of a guess. So we have a lot of time between now and then the more than year's worth of reports that we will see before
Right.
new crop is all said and done. So, the important thing here, one, low prices cure low prices in the form of new demand. The bad thing is that it takes sustained, longer periods at low prices. U.S. bushels are finally becoming competitive. Corn, it's been, this has been a theme here for the past several months. With U.S. corn, we're back in the mix again. And especially as we look at potential production issues in the Black Sea region or Eastern Europe, that kind of thing. So those are important to watch. And then as we watch South America kind of get into swing with corn exports as well. So those are important. The bean situation still really disappointing for new crop. We saw our first flash of, known sales to China last week. Looking forward, another thing, what a mess this election is.
No,
it's
let's
just
not even. No.
Yeah. So, but just thinking about the way that, we have so many things up in the air right now. And I think the market too is kind of some of the weakness maybe yesterday, going back to worries about China economic concern.
Generally
And then
not good for the markets.
Obviously,
Susan.
Yes.
Sorry. I want to get to a listener question real quick, but I've got a whole list of stuff I still want to talk to you about. So
okay.
We're going to move along.
Sorry, I'm rambling. Okay.
This is just going to be very point blank here. This is Doug Bartlett. He wants to know what the contract lows will be for December corn and November beans.
I am going to say with absolute certainty, Doug, that I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the answer. Guess? Yes, that's correct. I don't know. I hate getting into those games where we play guess the price.
Right. Well, I'll do it for you, Doug. I think that first target in November beans for me is 980. Okay. Based on what I know right now. And December corn, man, I hate to say it, but I'm feeling 340 right now. I've said 375 in the past, but I'm actually kind of starting to lower that a little bit, even with the report that we saw. And that's based on the price action. Okay. Anyways, now that we've gotten that out of the way, hope you feel better, Doug.
I think Doug is shedding tears right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody. Okay, but here's the thing, Susan. Like, I've got a sort of, diamond out there of, biofuels. We haven't even talked about any of that. This is the potential for new demand, right? So this is the positive part of the conversation. Let's talk about that. Something that you've mentioned a couple times on your Twitter is, what the changes are going to be from 40B to 45Z. Very quickly, it'd be helpful, I think, if you could explain that to our listeners, and then also what those changes might be.
Yeah. And, one thing when you say new demand, and I'm not saying that we can't, that we won't see demand grow overall, but it's definitely a change in demand. We're rerouting bushels more, more beans into crush for oil versus maybe as a larger export program, that kind of thing. But we have a lot of changes ahead. One, the current renewable fuel standard, we have to, normally by November, we would see the changes for 25, 26, and 27 be announced. And that officially the can has been kicked down the road by the EPA again, and we won't see those initial RVOs until I believe March is the new deadline. So that's one thing that's kind of up in the air. Because it brings uncertainty when we don't know exactly the direction the government is going with the mandate. And especially as we see a lot of changes with sustainable aviation fuel coming in the mix, because the RFS is currently only for road transportation fuels. It doesn't include SAF. I'm not implying that it will, but it's just, again, so many changes. But like you mentioned, 40B, which is a blender's credit, transitioning to a producer's credit, 45Z, effective January 1. So the difference here is that we will no longer be incentivizing the import of finished biofuels. So biodiesel, renewable diesel, and sustainable aviation fuel. That $1 a gallon tax credit on biomass-based diesel imports will go away, and instead it's replaced with the producer's credit, meaning that the incentive is to produce the biofuel here within the United States. So it's a good thing. But the other thing, the repercussion is that we don't have enough feedstocks here domestically to feed the need or the demand. So we will likely continue to see record amounts of feedstock imports, and that should only accelerate as we get into 2025.
Yeah. Well, and the availability, like once you set up that infrastructure to import a lot and expand those imports, that just makes it hard because once the investment's made for that, then to have domestic supplies compete with it, even if we do grow that, gets to be tough. So yeah, that's a bit of a tough situation, but hopefully rising tide lifts all ships. That's, I think, the optimistic portion of that. Now, talking about biofuels and SAF and things like that, you have a conference coming up in St. Louis in the first week of August, and this is going to be sort of the highlight or the feature of this conference, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, when I picked the topic of sustainable or a focus on sustainable aviation fuel months and months ago, I had no idea that it would turn into such a kind of a hot button topic that it is today. In fact, the EIA just released some data today that said that U.S. production capacity for sustainable aviation fuel could jump by 1,400% this year.
Yes.
So huge increase because, of course, we have this target of 3 billion gallons of SAF production annually by 2030, and we are nowhere near that today. So this year's event, it's August 7th, and then the actual conference event itself is August 8th in St. Louis. Big focus on sustainable aviation fuel and what it means, not only for the U.S. ethanol industry, but also what it means for soybean oil, because as we again transition into 45Z, lots of changes ahead with the way that these tax credits work and are set up. And soybean oil actually is a preferred feedstock when you look at it from a carbon intensity perspective for sustainable aviation fuel production over corn ethanol. So huge opportunity here for ag and just a lot of changes ahead. And so that's why I think it's really important that we all become more educated.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about it when I'm down there. I will see you in August. So that should be a good time, and everybody else should come and join us too. In the meantime, have a great day, Susan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is AgriTalk, everybody. And when we come back, we'll be talking to a special guest. So come on back to AgriTalk.
Thanks, guys.
We don't make the news, we render it. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk, everybody. My name is Ted Seifert from Zaner Ag Hedge, and I'm filling in for Chip here on Wednesday. And we had been talking to Susan Stroud of No Bull Ag. Definitely go to her Twitter, check her out. She puts out a lot of really good stuff, charts and quotes or charts and commentary. And again, she's putting on that for the second year. She's putting on the conference down in St. Louis, or it's a summit. It's No Bull Summit. So check that out on Twitter too. You guys sign up for it and see her and see me. And yeah, that'll be good. But speaking of charts and quotes and things, a good friend of the show and a good friend of Pro Farmer in the sense that she's been on the Pro Farmer Crop Tour, I think 10 years now, or maybe this is year 11 coming up, potentially. And she was inducted as a Master Scout last year. So our fourth quarter surprise guest here, we're going to have Karen Braun. Karen, how's it going?
It's going well, Ted. And yeah, you're right. Last year was my 10th tour, and this year would make it 11.
Well, are you going this year?
I will be going this year
Oh,
on the western side, as always, because now it's been, what is it? Now I've got 8 years in a row of the Western tour and most of the same routes. So now I have my own personal database that is so rich that, I just got to keep it going.
they do say the West is the best, although the guys on the East might argue that. But the
Nothing
reason
good
I
rhymes
asked,
with
Karen,
East. Nothing good rhymes with East.
nothing does really, except for shorter legs and getting into the hotel earlier, which is nice. But
This is true.
anywho, the reason I asked, Karen, is because I am aware that you are going to be kind of, well, taking a little bit of a trip coming up here very shortly. And I think that's super interesting. And that's why we have you, because I really think, I think you should tell everybody what you're about to do. So without further ado, what do you got going on?
So on Monday, I am leaving for Paris, and I will be there for 2.5 weeks, and I will be covering the gymnastics events for Reuters News. Obviously, I write agriculture columns for Reuters News, but whenever the Olympics come around, they always need extra hands. So I actually did cover the Tokyo Olympics, but from home, unfortunately, because of COVID. And I have, so I have written some gymnastics articles in the last, 5-ish years, but that's going to start back up again next week and right on site in Paris. So that'll be really, really cool. And yeah, I will not have a lot of time for agriculture stuff. So apologies that my Twitter will be a little bit thin on that information for a couple of weeks, but I promise I'll be coming back actually just before the August crop production report. So I think I get back like August 8th. So I will be back in time for the next round of USDA fun.
I'm going back in time. Okay, but as long as you promise you're coming back, then I think we can allow for this, because in your Twitter bio, which by the way, everybody should follow you on Twitter. You put out amazing stuff. But in your Twitter bio, it says gymnast for life. So I feel like that this is maybe, I don't know, it's a really, really cool thing for you to be doing. I mean, Paris by itself is awesome. The Olympics are awesome, but then also that was, gymnasts, that's your thing. So
right.
Wow, I'm really excited to see all the things that you're going to write about it. Do you have any real quick insight as to what we should be looking for? I mean, obviously Simone Biles, right?
Of course, yeah. I mean, she's back. It does not appear that she has the twisties or, anything remotely close to that. She should be in pretty good shape. But yeah, I mean, we have some other really great gymnasts on the U.S. team, a lot of returning Olympians, and it should be a really, really fun Olympics. And the fact that now we're back to, a regular attended Olympics, there should be the energy there, the fans. So I'm really excited to kind of experience that and, be in the arena, sitting in the press box, in the mix zone with the athletes, wow. Being up close with them. Like, that'll be a really cool experience just for me as a lifelong gymnast and just a fan of the sport. Like, I would do this in my free time, follow the gymnastics.
Like a dream come true.
It really is just like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you're actually part of this, right? I mean, you're not just a spectator. That's amazing, Karen. I think that's really fantastic.
No,
and I think
thank you.
All of agriculture will be following you. Well, mainly because we see all your stuff on Twitter anyways.
Right.
But we're all gonna be watching. Like, all of a sudden I'm a fan of gymnastics now because Karen's reporting on gymnastics from Paris. That's fantastic. So,
well, if I can bring in more viewers, then you know what, I've done my job. Gymnastics is the best sport at the Olympics. My personal opinion,
Sure.
But
well, do us a favor, throw us a bone in an agricultural tweet every once in a while. But in the meantime, have yourself a wonderful, wonderful time. And again, we'll be watching, and I'm sure you're going to do amazing, because really all of the reporting that you always do is really fantastic. So, wow. Again, be safe. Have a great time. And thanks for coming on to tell everybody about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ted. And I'll see you guys on Crop Tour.
All right. Well, be good in Paris. Oh, Davis, what a show, man. We really had to, I had to hustle. I don't know if you noticed. I was trying to move things along.
That being the case, are there things that remain unsaid that you want to get out there? what would you say right now if you had a microphone in front of you, hypothetically?
Man, I keep getting songs go through my head. Now it's a Dave Matthews song. What would you say, right? But okay. My big thing is going to be, I still keep going back to that quarterly grain stocks number. It doesn't jive for me with what the USDA's balance sheet, old crop balance sheet just said. I have a feeling those bushels, some of those, a good portion of those bushels will find their way back on the balance sheet. But even if they don't, the biggest problem that I have is that there's so many bushels still on farm, which means there's a natural seller that's going to be coming to market between now and harvest. And I'm very worried that if we don't get a weather rally, that this could get a little bit uglier than what most people are expecting. And it already is ugly, Davis. So yeah, I don't know. I hate to be the dark cloud. I've been that way for like a year now. But man, look at what we've done. So everybody prepare. Well, and I think, hanging on to old crop until the very last minute is not a good idea when you've got everybody else doing the same thing. So that's my final 2 cents there that I really wanted to get across.
Yeah. 6 to 10 day outlook is pretty simple according to the National Weather Service. Looks like areas of the northern plains, you've got above normal heat coming in. The below normal temperatures have moved down into Texas. Precipitation wet, call it in the southeastern half of the country. Chip is on the road, but he will be live tomorrow morning. Ted Seifert, Zaner Aghetch. Thanks, Susan Stroud.